Hi, Sharksky Moving here, bringing you my Purple Toolbox deck profile. Now, I know it's the end of the format, but I want to share my deck anyways because I've had a fair amount of success with it, placing 23rd at the GenCon online DC Grand Prix with more than 400 players, as well as doing well enough at my local store championships to get a playset of the store champion promo cards. Now, what does Purple Toolbox really mean? It means that the deck has the tools, primarily in the level 6 lineup, to deal with whatever board state your opponent has. I'll go into detail a bit more on the sixes later and what they can do, but just to inform you a bit on how the deck is built and how the deck plays, is that Tacti is the most proactive six and can also stop your opponent from going wide with rookies. Chaos Gallant is a great value engine that deals with fives and below. And then Pluto is a great source of burst draw that lets you deal with sixes and sevens with Hell's Gate. Moving on to the rest of the deck, starting with the babies, we have 4 Demimera and 1 Xiaomon. This is a pretty standard purple baby lineup. Demimera is by far the best purple egg, being able to filter cards as well as set up your trash. We do want the 5th egg though in Xiaomon because in the long games, especially against security control, being able to get that rookie out for free is really powerful. The retaliation does come up, but that's not why we're running it. We're just wanting the 5th egg for those games that go long. Moving on to the rookies, we have 4 Tapirmon. This card is amazing because when paired with a Demimera, you're drawing 2 and then pitching 1, which can really help you find what you're looking for. Beyond that, it's also pretty good to hard play so that you can just, again, see more cards. A hand with 2 Tapirs and a bunch of other garbage is really not much of a brick at all because you're just seeing so many cards. It's also an amazing res target off of the Black War Growl and the Chaos Gallant, just to keep your cards in hand count high so that you can build more lines, make more plays, and just see more of your level 6s so that you can answer whatever your opponent throws at you. Gilmon is okay. He's primarily there to res off of Black War Growl so that whenever you go into your Chaos Gallant, it stays your turn, or when you go into Tacti, you just gain a bunch of memory. It is useful in other situations just to have around so that if you just so happen to go into a Chaos Gallant without a Black War Growl, it's there, but you mainly just want to see 1 in trash so that you have the option to res it with the Black War Growl. So if I have a Demimera trigger early and I don't really need the Guilmon in hand, I'll oftentimes pitch it and then I'm set for the rest of the game. Moving on to the vanilla Devimon, Demi-Devimon, rather, the 2 to hard play, 0 to digivolve stat line is just really powerful. The ability to play a rookie for 2 just helps out in a bunch of different circumstances. Sometimes you want to get in that extra body. Sometimes you want to be able to play this and then go into a Devimon blocker for 1. So if you're at 3 with your memory tamer, you can play this, go into a blocker, and then still have it be your turn to make another play, either playing another blocker or playing another rookie. And also, it helps you choke your opponent with that different play cost as opposed to all your other rookies. So for all those reasons, I really like having it as a 3 of, but it's not something that you're really wanting to have in your yard and recur a bunch of times like these guys are. Its value is just being in hand and being able to play it for the cheap. Moving on to Gabumon, it also helps you find what you're looking for, but it does require you to have a 4, whereas Tapir is just good on its own. But I just like the extra source of card draw and consistency. Sometimes just leaving a blocker out to randomly get card draw at some point later in the game is useful. If you immediately need the cards, you can go into a Demimera and run it in, or a Retaliation Devimon and just get the cards immediately. So either way, it's just further consistency within the deck. But again, not as good as the Taper, which is why we're only running it as a 2-of. Last up, we have Gazimon as a 2-of. Gazimon is your memory denier. It stops blue in its tracks, turns out their hammer sparks, and they don't have a great way to get rid of it. Yellow, on the other hand, does have ways to get rid of it, but being able to turn off blinding rays is really powerful, and even if they do remove it with their DP reduction effects, you can always recur it with Chaos Gallant or Black War Growl if you need to. And it also kind of poses random other decks in the format, such as Lilith Loop and Weedmon, for example. Not the most useful against green, but you know, it's there. It's an effect. A lot of decks have incidental ways to gain memory. That's 14 rookies. I like 14 because if you have a rookie and the rest of your hand isn't great, you can at the very minimum, hopefully you have a Demimera, not a Xiaomon, and then run that in and hope you find what you're looking for. Now moving on to 4s, we have for the Devimon blocker that we talked about before. Like I said, amazing when paired with the two to play rookie as well as Gabumon, and just being able to even build your stack and raising on the cheap. It's just really powerful, which is why we're wanting to max out on it. Next up, we have Vilemon. So this is 3 more blockers, which is useful to help aggression, but the 6K threshold is a pretty big deal in a lot of matchups. For one, against Lord Knight, it stops it from getting reduced by a 4K reduction plus the 1K reduction, and that comes up a lot because War Growl as well as Nightmon are 4K, and then the baby inheritable is 1K, so that just gets rid of 5K bodies with relative ease, but Vilemon dodges that. He also is able to block Rookie Rush 5K beaters without trading, which is super helpful. And he also dodges other random removals, such as Needhog or Shotmon. So for all those reasons, I like running it as a 3 of. Now, lastly, we have 2 Meramon and 2 Devimon. Before I was on 4 Meramon, just because I really like the 1 to Digivolve efficiency, but I feel like the added utility from the Retaliation Devimon is nice. If you have, say, a random rookie on board, or a rookie in raising, and they swing with their big 6, let's say a Lord Knight or Grand Quagga or something like that, you can then answer back with a Devimon. Yes, the 6 potentially did its damage, but it will help you stabilize. And I feel like the 6 1 to Digivolves from the 4 blockers and the 2 Meramon are enough. If you feel like you want to get more efficiency, I would not fault you for cutting these for Meramons, but I like the 2-2 right now. But I feel like it could depend on your meta and how you personally feel about the Retaliation Devimon. That is 11 fours. A lot of purple players opt for 10, but I like 11 just to have the consistency. Next up with 5s, we have 4 Black War Growls. He is the major 5 in the deck. He enables a lot of aggression with its inheritable and also allows you to go wide with the Digiburst effect. The Digiburst effect also sets up his inheritable nicely. I'll talk about his interactions with this deck 6s in the future, but even as a standalone card, he's really powerful. If I have another line to 5 in hand, and I don't have a 6 yet, I definitely don't mind just promoting my Black War Growl, Digibursting out, preferably a taper, and then just swinging with it. 7K isn't super likely to live, but against most decks, it'll probably live, a bit more than half the time. And then if it does live, it can maybe swing again next turn. And then with the rookie at spawn, that's like 3 damage in the early game, and that can really set you up later to be in a really strong position because then your opponent will just be under the gun for the rest of the game. Next up, we have 3 Skullmara and 1 Lady Devi. Now, a lot of people go 2-2, but I like this 3 Skullmara because if you have a Skullmara and a 6, it's really not that bad. Whereas these are just impossible to hard play. Like, you're in a terrible position. So I like the 5 to hard play for that reason. And the 2 to Digivolve on the cheap is nice as well, because if you're just Digivolving Lady Devi in the back, 2 is cheaper than 3. But even beyond that, even if you're not bricking, a lot of times in Digimon, it's the chicken game, right? So if things are going well, I have a Black War Growl in raising, but if it's going well for the opponent, they'll potentially have their Lord Knight in raising, but they don't want to res it bring it up because it could have gotten popped by like Chaos Gallon before, or they don't want it to get popped by Hell's Gate without getting the swing in first. So they're just going to go up Lord Knight safely in raising, and you can't do anything about it. But then you can just hard slam a Skullmara, and that just threatens a 6 on board as well as a 6 in raising. And that means if they just keep the Lord Knight back there and then they develop on board, if it's a bunch of rookies, you can go into Tacti to pop them. If they build up to a 5 or just leave a 4 randomly, you can just get a Chaos Gallon out, remove that body, and then start putting on pressure with a Chaos Gallon and getting value from that. So, and if they do promote their Lore Knight to get rid of the Skullmare that you hard played, well then, they just expose their Lore Knight, and then you could potentially answer back with that Black War value built up in raising. So those lines are super important, and being able to just threaten a 6 with 1 card is just super powerful. And then the Lady Debbie is good. I do like it. The ability to draw 2, pitch 2 is just great for finding the tool that you're looking for. Like I said, we're a toolbox deck. So being able to just see more cards to find exactly what you need in that particular situation is super powerful. Being 8K is also nice. Being able to beat over other level 5s or swing into security with relative safety is nice. And then heritable comes up sometimes as well. All those factors don't come up super often in this deck just because it's the one of, but if you like it, for sure run it at 2. I just like the Skull Mirror for the reasons that I stated. 8 level 5s standard stuff. Now going into our 6s that we talked about before, we have, again, the 3 Tacti, 2 Chaos Gallant, and 2 Pluto. Starting with the Tacti, like I said, he is definitely your most proactive 6. You can get the pops on the rookies, which are really nice, and absolutely destroys Rookie Rush. But even without that, even if you just get 1 rookie proc, his other abilities are doing a lot for you, being able to gain a memory in 2K. Specifically, with the Black War Growl, it's very powerful. So let's say with a Black War Growl, you raise your Black War Growl, you Digiburst out a Guilmon, right? Then you go into Tacti for 3, assuming you have a Memory Tamer out and you're not passing turn. You swing with the Tacti Black War Growl effect, sack the Guilmon that you just rezzed, unsuspend, gain a memory from the Guilmon dying, hopefully pop a rookie, but then he's swinging for 13 and gaining a memory. And then you can swing again and gain another memory and swing for 15. At that point, you're at 3 memory, which just opens up a bunch of options for you. You can go wide with some rookies, you can play a blocker and not give them too much memory, you can go into a 7 or cast a Hell's Gate. The world is your oyster, and you just dealt 2 damage that was, again, pretty safe. And against certain matchups that I will talk about later, that specific line can just win you the game. Next up, we have Chaos Gallant. Again, pairs great with Black War Growl. He is your answers for 5s and below. Let's say your opponent is just prematurely raises their 5 from raising, or if they're not having the best game and they're just hard slamming a 5, Chaos Gallant will just destroy them if that's all they have, because they'll lose that 5, and then you'll just have an incredible value engine that can constantly res a rookie every turn. And beyond that, he can just also deal a lot of damage. Let's say you res a rookie, and let's just say you even just pass turn, right? So you go into Chaos Gallant, pop like a blocker or something, and then you res the rookie that you spawn from the Black War Growl, right? Comes back to you. You can swing with that rookie, and then when it dies to the security check, Chaos Gallant can still bring it back because the thing doesn't have to die from a card effect. It can just die from any circumstance on your turn. So then you res it with Chaos Gallant effect, swing with Chaos Gallant effect, Black War Growl effect, sack that thing you just res to unspend, and then swing again, which is 3 checks with minimal board with minimal setup. All you had was just the Black War Growl stack and then the Chaos Gallant, and you just represent 3 damage. If you have a random blocker out, or you have a rookie and raising that you just raised, the damage can get really high really fast without your opponent really noticing it. So I've definitely won a lot of games with that particular line, and you should just keep track of how much damage you really are representing, because it might be a bit more than you think. Moving on, we have Pluto, and Pluto is your answers to your opponent's 6s and above, because our option lineup is 3 Hell's Gate and 1 Deathclaw. No Earthshakers, because I like Chaos Gallant's ability to answer 5s and below. And if I feel like I want to answer more of those, I would just slot in a Chaos Gallant instead of trying to squeeze in an Earthshaker. Hell's Gate, as compared to Earthshaker, I am super happy about just casting on its own. Being able to answer a threat with just 1 card is super nice. If I'm bricking and I just have, like, I don't know, blockers and Hell's Gate, yeah, that's not great. I'm not digivolving, I'm not drawing a bunch of cards. If I just hard slam a blocker, give them a bunch of memory, they build up to their 6, promote, start doing their 6 thing, and then I answer with Hell's Gate. Maybe they don't have another second perfect line, and then we're at parity. Then that might just stall the game long enough for me to find my pieces, and then I'll be in an okay position, and I answered one of their threats with 1 card in hand. But when I do cast this card with Pluto, that's really, really powerful, because you're drawing a bunch of cards with the Pluto, casting an extremely powerful option for cheap, and then you have a 6 on board that can start swinging potentially twice if you have a Black War Growl under it, and it threatens one of your 7s in the future. So super duper powerful in that sense. But I do like Hell's Gate more than Pluto if I were to only have 1 piece of the combo, and that's why we're running 3 and 2. And sometimes you won't have the Hell's Gate in hand, and you'll just randomly slam the Pluto because I really need to find that Hell's Gate to come back, and 3 draws is a lot, and you might be able to find it. Moving on, we have the 1 of Deathclaw. You will cast it sometimes with Pluto, but that's really not that much value, and at that point it's just a really, really bad Chaos Gallant. So you're really not looking to try and do that most of the time, but just as a standalone card, very powerful. The security effect, being able to save you, is strong. The deck doesn't have the strongest security other than just kind of having some beefy guys and R7s, which we'll talk about in a bit. But beyond that, the ability to pair this with a rookie in hand, either a vanilla or a Guilmon, to answer 4 or below for 3 memory is very efficient and strong. It's not card efficient because you're using 2 cards in hand to answer 1 card on board, but you're purple, so with like Pluto and Gobus and Tapirs, if things are going well in the late game, you'll have a good amount of cards in hand, but they might have been able to establish a strong board. So Deathclaw will be able to use cards in hand to answer things on board efficiently. It can also potentially let you push through blockers to get lethal out of nowhere as well. So that's pretty strong. Those are our 6s and options. We are running 7 6s, which is a good amount, but we do have the draw of purple that lets us, pitch extras. If we have 2 Plutos in hand, it's like, yeah, I can probably get rid of one of them. I'm not really trying to resolve Pluto twice in the same game. So you have the ability to run a bit more 6s than average, and I could see myself going up to 8. It's just a little bit too clunky at that point, in my opinion. But I could definitely see myself running an extra Chaos Gallant. Moving on to my 7s, I run 1 each of Millenniumon, Zwart Defeat, and Zwart. A little bit strange, but each one fulfills a very important role within the deck, and I'll discuss them going from my most favorite to least favorite. My most favorite is the Zwart Defeat. It's obviously amazing in security and can change the tide of the game in your favor if you flip it off of that, but even when you digivolve into it, if you pop one of their memory tamers, that's insane value. You then can continue to choke them, and they can choose to develop another memory tamer, but that will take most of their turn, and then you're going to constantly be swinging in with this 13k beater. And a lot of decks removal is tied to their 6s and 7s, and if they do answer it with their 6 or 7, then you have a perfect target to pop with its on deletion effect. So it's kind of a lose-lose for them. And like I said, it can just put on a lot of pressure in the meantime, especially if it has a black ward route under it. I would like to run 2, but if you don't have the tamer to pop with its on digivolve effect, it feels really not that great, and it feels like it's rotting in your hand. So that's why I feel like 1 is enough. Next up, we have Millenniumon. Millenniumon is here primarily for the yellow Lord Knight matchup. It can answer an unsuspended Lord Knight, which is always good if you can answer it before it starts getting its value going. It can answer a Valder Arm with getting around its on deletion effect. It can also get around other random cards on deletion effects, such as a Zwart Defeat. But also it's 13k that floats into itself. So they have to get through it twice. And getting through 13k DP reduction as yellow is pretty difficult. So for those reasons, I like it for that matchup, but just having another piece of removal, kind of like a 4th Hell's Gate, is nice. And like I said, it has other fringe benefits like getting rid of Craniumon, and that comes up sometimes. Next up, we have Zwart, and it's my least favorite, but it's still very powerful. It's proactive, unlike these two. So if I don't really have anything to do in my hand and I have a 6 on board, I can go into Zwart and then build up my board. I can call some 5s, and then I can threaten going into a 6 in hand. If I need to stabilize, I can then call 2 blockers. But the reason why I feel like it's a bit of a trap without Mega Digimon Fusion is that you are not guaranteed the on attack trigger, unless you Mega Digimon Fusion, which we're not running. Because you're going to be passing turn, and then they will see the one attacking trigger and always get rid of it if they can. And if you're against Lord Knight, which is the biggest deck in the format, they have great ways to answer this. If you're going into your 6 into this in the same turn, unless you're popping off attack, you're giving them 5 memory, 6 memory, and that's a lot. If you're up against Lord Knight, that lets them potentially clear your entire board, the Zwart and the things that you spawn with a combination of Nightmons, Starmons, and Balder Arm. And if they do that, then you basically lose the game because they'll have a wide board and you're left with nothing. But it is very good in another key matchup, which is security control. It makes a security control matchup winnable. Without it, I feel like that matchup is really difficult. But the ability to, again, spawn 2 level 5s against that deck in particular is really strong because to answer level 5s, they have to commit a fairly expensive option to answer it. And then there's the Zwart itself. So that just puts on a whole lot of pressure that they can't really deal with it a great way. So that's the reason why I like running one of each. They each have a very specific purpose. And like we said, we're a toolbox deck, so we're drawing a lot. Hopefully, we find the right one for the right situation. To tamers, we have the two purple mats as well as the one tie-in mat. Purple mat is pretty straightforward. It's your memory tamer, which enables you to go into Tacti for 3 without passing turn, as well as a Chaos Gallant if you pair it with the Guilmon, and then you can start getting your multi-attack triggers going on, putting on pressure that way. Beyond that, though, it can potentially smooth out early games. Let's say you have a Tapir and another rookie. You can do Tapir in Raising, hopefully on top of a Demimera, and then play your other rookie, promote the Tapir, swing, draw a bunch, and hopefully find what you need. Play the mat to pick the Tapir back up to do it again next turn if need be. Against security control in specific, you can potentially pay the essentially 4 to play a card from trash, find a card from trash just to replay it. Most other decks aren't going to be slow enough so that you can pay that 4 extra tax to just cast a card from your graveyard, but if you really need to find a piece and you've got no other choice, he's there for you in those situations. We only have him at 2 because we are purple and we're drawing a lot and pitching a lot, so we'll find him most of the time, and this deck doesn't need the memory tamer to play the game, so I feel like 2 is enough. As far as the tie-in mat goes, this is the card that's kind of the flex slot whenever I'm thinking about slotting in another 6 or a 7 or another option. This is the card I'm thinking about cutting, but every time I play him, I feel like he overperforms. It's just the 2 extra memory when your opponent has a 6 or higher just gets you out of a lot of sticky situations, because when your opponent has a 6 or higher, those are the turns that you really need to make plays to come back. Either it gives you enough memory to go into your own 6 to answer their board, or gives you enough memory to cast a Hell's Gate without giving them too much memory. Beyond that, the extra security attack can come up if you have an Omni on top of a War Growl that's threatening a lot of damage, or if you have this on board and then you flip a Zwart to feed off security, your opponent is staring down a lot of damage. Both of these situations don't come up that often, but it is the definite upside of the card in the deck. Now moving up to matchups really quickly, Lord Knight I think is winning, but could be closer to 50-50 if they knew what my deck did perfectly. But again, it's not the most common deck, so I'm not 100% sure on that. That play I mentioned before with the tag team Black Lord Growl is especially effective against Lord Knight because there are a lot of situations where they have a rested Lord Knight and an unsuspended Lord Knight, and you can swing over the rest of Lord Knight with a Tacti, gain a bunch of memory, and then destroy the other one with either a Hell's Gate or a Millennium on. But if they draw well and you're drawing poorly, it can be really difficult to come back because they could just generate so much aggression and advantage. And also they can come back if you don't continue choking them or kill them quickly. So it's not a super winning matchup, but it is. I do win more often than not. Moving on to Rookie Rush, the name of the game is stabilization. Use your blockers to slow them down so that you can eventually go into your Tacti. If you resolve and find your Tacti, you basically win the game. Chaos Gallant is okay too at slowing down the game. You just need to slow down the game enough so that you can just eventually out attrition them. Because if the game goes long, you're usually in a pretty good spot. I feel like that matchup is super winning. I've yet to lose it with that deck with this exact build, but I've had some close sets for sure. It's just if I don't draw well, they're Rookie Rush and they can capitalize on that. Lastly, we have Security Control, which is what I feel like this deck's most difficult matchup is. So where it makes it decently doable, but a lot of times the deck's draws can be a little bit clunky, and if I'm not drawing perfectly, I can't really put on the appropriate pressure on them to get through all of their security. And also, purple is prone to decking out. This build is not as bad as Lilith Loop, but if you are drawing too much to try and find the pieces that you need to continue putting on pressure, you will eventually deck yourself out for sure. So keep that in mind when playing that matchup. I feel like it's losing, but it's really hard to say. I would need to get more reps to say that for certain. As far as other random matchups go, this is a toolbox deck, so you have the tools to answer almost any board state. So you just need to keep in mind what your opponent's game plan is, what their threats are, and what their decks do. And if you have a good knowledge of the meta and the cards in the format, you can usually figure it out just by knowing what cards you need to find and when you should play them. And that's the list. If you have any questions about the deck, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching and have a great one.